Today's video is on building your visual arts vocabulary. We're going to be learning the elements and principles of design. This is going to be a really quick overview. We're going to start with the word composition. Now, composition is considered by some to be an element of art, but we really see this as an overarching term that kind of describes the overall how the artist uses the elements and principles together. There are 7 elements of art: color, line, shape, form, value, texture, and space. And the first one we're going to look at is color. So you're going to see several images and examples from artworks come up, and you can pause the video as you like to look at these things and take down some vocabulary terms. The color wheel is going to be a great tool in helping you to understand color and how to effectively use colors together. Our next element of art we're going to learn about is line. Now, line can be used in so many ways, some more obvious than others. There's many different types of lines. You can have actual line or implied line, which is a line that's more suggestive than actually really existing. So pause to look at any of these images to help you understand line better. Our third element of art is shape. Now, the big differentiation we're going to see in shapes are geometric shapes versus organic form shapes or free-form shapes that have more of a fluid movement. You can see artists using a variety of types of shapes in their work. Next we have form, which goes along really with shape, but this is going to be the 3D version. So when we have something that actually exists or a depiction of what it might look like, or is depicted to look like it does. And next we have value. Value is how light or how dark an object or color is. We have the value scale to help us. We can see this in photography and will really help you with photorealism, trying to make your artwork look more realistic. Our next element is texture, and there's 2 main types of texture. We have actual texture and implied texture. So actual texture you can physically touch in your artwork, and visual texture being texture the artist creates. And our last element of art is space. Now, space is really going to help you to think of your artwork as a whole and how the different pieces and parts work together. So things like middle ground, background, and foreground. You also have positive and negative space, so how objects interact and how far you can see through, past, and beyond them. And now we're ready to move into the principles of design. The principles of design are really these terms that are going to help us to describe how the artists use the elements together. As an artist, you're not going to use all of the principles every time. You're going to choose which one is going to work for which artwork. You might have more than one. You might focus on one in each artwork. So the first one we're going to look at is balance. Balance goes in with words like symmetry, asymmetry, and radial symmetry. In Frida Kahlo's piece here, you can see a great example of asymmetry. Balanced, but not exactly the same on both sides. So next up is contrast, often seen depicted in black and white works. So where we're seeing a really strong kind of coming to head of 2 colors or 2 different elements that are really kind of working against one another, or how the artwork as a whole exists in its environment in contrast to the things around it. Similar to contrast, but a little different, we have emphasis. So this is drawing specific attention to one part of the artwork. Like we see in Goya's 3rd of May, the man in the white shirt throwing up his hands in surrender stands out and is emphasized because of the difference of the color in his clothes and in what he's doing with his body. Next is harmony. Harmony is really how it sounds. It's the pieces of the artwork working well together in a harmonious way. So in Gustav Klimt's The Kiss, we see great harmony between the shapes and colors and lines that he uses. And now movement. Movement could be actual movement, like in a performance piece, or it can be a depiction of movement. Like we see in Marcel Duchamp's Nude Descending the Stairs, we can really get a sense of movement because of this kind of repetition of shapes. You can see where they started and then where they ended. Now moving on to pattern, which can seem like a really elementary principle of design where we have this A-B kind of movement between different shapes. In Fred Thomas Sally's work, we can really see how pattern and these little repeating images can have a really striking impact when used in a more refined way. Next up, proportion refers to the different sizes of the different elements in your artwork. So we can see this is really going to help us when we are trying to demonstrate accurate perspective. In Grant Wood's American Gothic, we can tell that the two figures are standing far in front of the house because they're so much larger than the house in the background. And repetition, where we see a repeating element throughout a work of art. How much more striking is Duhossa's public figures with the repetition of the shape of the soldier under this tomb object? How much more impactful is that than if it was just one soldier holding it up? Now, rhythm is working a little bit similarly to movement. I want you to think of it as like a visual echo that reinforces a different part of the work. Like we can see in Vincent van Gogh's work here, we can really get this sense of a pulsation and movement through this idea of rhythm. Next, we have unity. And unity is how well the pieces and parts work together. Not how similar they are, but the unity that you see amongst them. Like in Wayne Thibault's cakes, we can see a unity in theme, but we see a lot of difference in how the different cakes are depicted. And our last principle of design we're going to look at, and in contrast with unity, we have variety. So variety is where we see lots of different elements being used together in the same artwork. Jasper Johns is a great artist, a great example of variety and throwing in lots of different elements into an artwork, but still having some great visual impact and places for the eyes to rest. That's it today for the elements of art and principles of design. We went through this really fast today, so I encourage you to go back and pause the video where you need to take some notes. We will be going over all of this more in the future, but for today, that's it.